Stan. So
Hi there.
wonderful to meet you. I'm Bonnie. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. I'm getting a chance
It's
to talk to a lot of nice people.
well, good. Well, I hope I'm in that category. So you'll let me
Hopefully.
know in about 10 minutes. But anyway,
Okay.
greetings from Toronto, Canada. Did you play here? You must have. You must
Toronto.
have
Yeah,
played.
sure. I played there a couple times. I stayed with a guy named Perry who had a men's store down in downtown Toronto. I think it's called Perry's, but that was a long time ago in
Yeah, was it?
Toronto.
Well, yeah, a few years ago. You probably played up at the York University courts and stuff like that. So for sure, because so I was a young gal when you were
Uh,
playing. But I have to ask you first of all, before we talk to Danny, I wanted to know when Danny came to you and or you were approached with this idea of doing a documentary on your amazing life. Was there any hesitancy? Was there or was it something you just wanted to jump in and do?
well, I did this book called Stan Smith. Some people think I'm a shoe, and the people from Spring Hill. Uh, LeBron James, production company liked it, and they said, "Gee, we'd really like to do a documentary on it." And so I said, "Well, okay." And then we looked at different directors, and we got to interview them. And Danny was I thought that was the guy, even though I didn't know. I've seen some of his stuff.
Yeah.
It was impressive, and so we went with it, and it was a fantastic choice.
Off and running. And then Danny, welcome. Nice to meet you. Congratulations on the doc. It's so good. We learned so much about Stan on and off the court, which is just so fascinating. I just asked him about, if he had any hesitancy jumping in on this, did not. And you were approached to direct it. Well, how much did you know about Stan before you started?
It's a great question. I think I was like most people where I had sort of cursory foundational knowledge that there's this amazing sneaker that's been around longer than I feel like I was alive,
Yeah.
which is true. And then I knew that it was in fact, I feel like it was the original tennis shoe, like
Mm.
people threw that phrase around, but I just knew he was a tennis champion, tennis icon, and a shoe. And so, but I, going into the research process, obviously unpacked so much more. Um, so did I answer your question? I'm trying to remember. Was there a second part of your question?
Just about how much you knew about him, and then yeah, well, you can expand if you like, because I was going to ask you too. Once you started to dig in and get to know Stan a little bit, and I don't want to give away too much because I liked exploring this as I was watching the documentary, things I found out. But what kind of surprised you or just really impressed you the most?
Yeah, when like with any project that I embark on, you embark with an open heart, open mind.
Mm.
You have an idea of what it is, and right away, this is one of those where right away I'm like, there is a mythology behind this name. Let's unpack it, and
Mm.
that's the drive of the film. That's what propels us forward. That's the carrot that we're dangling. You want to keep peeling back the layers, and what really surprised me is beyond that Stan at the outset is this obsessive athlete, like many athletes, who want to be number one at all costs and
Okay.
obsessive practicing. And you love that's like, the warrior training that, he had his 10,000 hours and all these things. And it was like that was cool. But then as you started to peel it back, it became really clear that one, he was this only child who tennis became everything for him, right? Not this only child, but at the time, his two older brothers were off to college. He felt sort of like an only child at home. But what surprised me the most were, as I peeled it back, not just the tennis career, but how deep of a humanitarian he was. And it was so understated. He wasn't out there trying to show himself, show his altruism in any way. He was just there as an ally with Arthur Ashe, with Mark Matabani.
Yeah.
All that, for me, those were the biggest revelations.
Yeah, and Stan, when you look back at that time in your life, of course, being on the court at that time and winning championships and all this kind of stuff, yes, it's so important. But then, as we do find out what an amazing humanitarian you are, how important or how did that kind of supersede the playing aspect of your life?
Well, I think in looking back, I think any athlete, hopefully, when they look back, will say the playing periods of their life were important, but it wasn't their whole life. I mean,
Right.
it wasn't necessarily the thing that made them, get up in the morning when they, stop playing. And so it's, I learned a lot, traveling the tour and getting to know people like Arthur and Mark and all my, compatriots on the team, on the tour, and then off the tour, working with the USTA, some of the younger players in our player development program, and then now being involved with an academy. And I generally, will give them quotes. My role in our academy is really encouragement of young kids
Mm.
because it's so difficult today, just to grow up. And my favorite quote I gave last week was, uh, "Comparison is a thief of joy,"
Mm.
and doesn't necessarily just apply to young kids. It applies to all of us. When we think about, you know, other people have more of this or that, and so that to be able to satisfy with what you have, and then to hopefully help others along the way, can make your life more meaningful.
100%. And Stan, when also Adidas came to you with the shoe idea and everything, did you ever think it was going to be as big and as crazy as it became?
Yeah,
And even today, you're selling Adidas shoes by Balenciaga, like what are almost $1,000. Like that's
yeah, Balenciaga.
crazy.
Yeah, it's been one of the key to the successes of the shoe has been the collaboration with different people. It started very early with Raf Simons, and he put the little R on the shoe, and then it went from $70 to 100, $350. I never
Yeah.
did understand that, but Pharrell Williams and Stella McCartney, and
Yeah.
just recently, there's about a month ago, we just did something with Bape, and it'll test you as far as your fashion background. But Bape
Yeah.
has been around for 30 years in Japan,
Yeah.
making trendy clothes for young kids or just kids in general. So
Right.
anyway, that's a collaboration that they've done, and so it's I had no idea that this thing would have a life that it's had.
It's pretty crazy, but it's a great shoe. I mean, there's no question about it. And I love how it's evolved over the years too, like the Pharrell one, like the soft cloth, like they're really
Yeah.
cool looking, you know?
Yeah, well, they've got some different
Which you have,
materials, different
Stan?
colors, different
Which you
designs.
have.
How many pairs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got probably about 120 or so in the closet, and I do wear them quite a bit. So
Good. Excellent. As you should, as you should. Danny, how many free pairs did you end up getting after making this?
Not enough. No, I'm playing. No, Stan definitely hooked me up. I think I've gotten three from them. One of them he signed. He also gifted my two children and my wife pairs,
Nice.
which he signed. Actually, my son Noah, his first steps were in a Stan Smith shoe, and I think that can apply to many people. Um,
Yes.
the royal family, he gifted some baby shoes to them. Um, but in terms of
Wonderful.
like, yeah, and in terms of the staying power of the shoe, I think that's a testament to Stan.
Yeah.
It's sort of unassuming. Like Stan is this towering figure, but he's not overbearing. Like there's this magnetism to Stan, and it's weird to say this in front of him, but like the moment I met him, I'm like, oh my God, that's Stan Smith. But
Yeah.
like he was so incredibly warm until this day, and it's so authentic, and I think that energy is in the shoe. It's like it's an everyman shoe, yet it feels like there's this power imbued in it, and that may seem crazy
No.
to say, but all of it, I think that's why it has such staying power, is
Yeah,
because
100%.
it's
Yeah, and Stan, even when you were on the court back playing, I mean, you had opponents wearing the shoes. What was that like when you get on the court and you look down at your opponent's feet and you're like,
yeah,
okay, okay,
that,
I'll go with it.
that's a good question. I said I didn't think it was right for a guy to be wearing my shoe and beat me. That's the part. I didn't mind them wearing him, but to beat me, I didn't think it was really protocol.
Yeah,
So it did annoy me sometimes, but I would look down and see that sometimes and say, well, I should be winning this match because I got this shoe.
exactly. Yeah.
Didn't happen that way.
And Danny, you took up tennis during COVID, I understand. Have you gotten any tips from Stan and have you played him?
How did you know that?
I'm just very good at my job.
Um, yeah, I think like many other people, COVID was the silver lining was it was a great opportunity to adjust and adapt in life. And I'd always wanted to take up tennis. I think I had a couple lessons as a kid, but I got diverted by video games and all these things. And so I took it up, and yeah, during our shoot, it was still COVID. And on the off days, first of all, Stan was he we would he his interview was 8 hours long. So, and he was sick for most of the shoot. And so for on his off days, he just offered, he's like, hey, you want to hit?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes. And so yeah, he taught me some things that I still use till this day.
Amazing. And I have to wrap it up, but Stan, really quickly, who excites you on the court today? What player or what players?
You mean besides Danny?
Yeah, besides Dan.
Yeah,
The
Alcaraz.
pro, he'll make it there someday, but
Yeah,
what are
he'll
the
make it
pros?
there. Alcaraz from Spain is really exciting. He is very, very talented. He's got really very strong forehand, backhand, good serve. He moves like the wind, and but he has a real joy in playing, and it's fun to watch that. And the other guy who's really good is Sinner, of course. He just won a tournament just recently, and
Yeah.
there's a guy named Rune who's quite good, and a guy named Ben Shelton who's an American that his father was ranked as high as 55, and he was a coach both for men and women to win the NCAAs, and he's on the tour now with his son,
Yeah.
and he's already in the top 20. Ben is
Amazing.
so fun to watch.
Amazing. Well, listen, thank you, gentlemen, for your time today. I really appreciate it. What a fantastic film. And Stan, what an honor for me to have a chance to talk to you. Really, what a thrill. So thank you both for your time today, and best of luck with the doc. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bonnie. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.